This is the Design Portfolio Review website, and the URL for it is designreview.risd.edu. This dedicated site has all the information that we're going to be covering tonight, and it's a go-to resource for you for any last-minute questions you have as you're getting prepared. So please do keep this in mind. This is available to you at all times. So our agenda is to go through the participating companies for this year. We're going to cover some of the technical details on how to apply for a portfolio review, the process of meeting with the reviewers and what that is like, and what to expect during a review, during this experience when you're talking to a professional and presenting your work. We give you some ideas to consider for what you can say and questions that you can ask. And we cover maybe the most important aspect of this whole event is the follow-up. You have the opportunity to make connections, but it's all about what you do with those connections and how you follow up. That really gives you that lasting value. And as I had mentioned, we'll save time at the end for questions and answers. So to start with, just want to start with Artworks. So when we go into the Artworks platform, and the Artworks platform, you all registered for this event, so you're familiar with Artworks, but Artworks is at the URL risd.1 2 and the word 20.com. And when you're looking in Artworks, you can navigate over to the OCI and job listings link on the left-hand side. And you can look at the OCIs at the top, and OCIs are what the Artworks platform refers to as portfolio reviews. So it's kind of synonymous with portfolio reviews. And you can add a filter, which could be for your RISD major of interest. And you can select from that major to see a filtered list of the available portfolio reviewers that are going to be participating. And so I want to make sure that I'm clear here. If your major is ID, but you're actually interested also in graphic design companies or illustration companies, you are welcome to click those majors as well. This is not going to be a portfolio review is not limited to the major that's indicated in their registration. It is open to all students in all majors. And so another good place to find participating companies all in one place is actually to look at the participating companies page on the Design Review website. And I have the URL down below there. So it's the same URL /2026. And on this page, you can look for your major and you can click on the link for each company name, which will take you to their website. And those majors that are listed underneath are two-letter abbreviations for each major. And we have the legend for those majors up at the top. So just to go through an assortment of some of these companies, thought it might be helpful to see some of the broad range of companies that are participating. And, one of the common aspects that I used for this sampling of companies is that all of these companies have alums that are participating in the event. And as a matter of fact, this is a short list of the alums that are participating. We have excellent engagement from alums this year. Astronaut Monastery, and it's a creative studio blending art, design, and experiential storytelling. Black Math, one of our repeat visitors and always gets a strong turnout with students. They're a creative agency in Boston delivering brand design and digital solutions with a focus on technology. EPT Design, a landscape, architecture, and urban design firm shaping public and private spaces. Fidelity Investments, a financial services corporation offering investment management and advisory services. Fresh Cut Paper, a sustainable gift company known for pop-up paper bouquets. Heluna Health, they're a nonprofit organization supporting public health initiatives. Microsoft, need I say more? They are Microsoft. Morcos Key, they're a design studio specializing in typography and brand identity. Nova, a strategy and information consultancy. And Shepley Bullfinch, an architecture firm focused on healthcare, academic, and civic design. All right. So that's just a sampling of the companies that are participating. It's really exciting to see. Almost there. There we are. Great. And so that just kind of gives you a sense of the companies that are present. We try to make it very easy for you to be able to preview the companies that are participating through the website with hyperlinks to their websites. And we also are flagging the majors of interest that they have in Artworks and the Artworks platform to also give you tools that will help you to zero in on the focus that you have for the companies that you'd like to network with and potentially get reviews with. So the next step in this presentation is talking about some of the technical aspects of applying for a portfolio review, how to get the most out of this experience. And so to be clear, the design portfolio review is taking place on March 11th, which is a Wednesday. Just to cover some of the terms that we've already seen a glimpse of, when we're in Artworks and we see on-campus interview or OCI, that's what we use as the tool to facilitate portfolio reviews. When you see an interview time slot, we're using those time slots as portfolio review time slots. And when you apply to an OCI, even though it is listed as a job, this is really making a request for a portfolio review. And it also enables you to send your resume to the reviewer, even if you're not given a portfolio review. Rest assured that any OCI that you apply to, your resume will be sent along to the employer. And so we've got a page dedicated to the application process on the Design Review website. And I'm going to run through this portfolio review OCI application guide. And this is readily available on the website right now. So what is an OCI application lottery? So the portfolio reviews are very popular, and this lottery is intended to reduce the stress for all of you, to depressurize the process of applying, and to balance the distribution of these applications with the available meeting time slots for all companies. And so the window for applying for an OCI or applying for a chance to get a portfolio review, that window opens on Tuesday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. and it'll close at Wednesday, the following day, March 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You can apply at any time during that window. So there's no advantage to being the first to apply. All applications, no matter when they come in, are treated equally in the lottery system. We do encourage you to make a minimum of 3 applications. This would really allow you to have the best chances in being a part of the lottery. And while you are applying to an OCI, just to be clear, this does not guarantee a portfolio review. However, all applications and resumes will be sent to the companies after the event for future networking. And so what this looks like when you're going into Artworks, because you can't actually see what this application process looks like now if you were to go in. So when the applications open, this is what it will look like. And we're using example test portfolio review files for you to just see as a demonstration. So you're going to click on the OCI and job listings link on the left-hand side. And then you'll be clicking the OCI pane at the top. You can select an OCI such as this one for big, and that will pop up this view where you can see the full listing of the portfolio review, and you can hit the Apply Now button, and that's that large button there. When you hit the Apply Now button, it's going to prompt you to select a resume. So if you have more than one resume loaded in your profile, that pull down will have all of your resumes that are available. Of course, if you haven't uploaded one yet, you can upload one in the moment with that option. And then you'll click the Apply button. So you repeat that process of going to the OCI listings, looking at the listing and applying until you've gotten through all of the applications that you want to make for Design Portfolio Review this year. Once you've made all of your applications, so as I had mentioned, like hopefully you're making a minimum of 3 applications, then you get a chance to rank your applications to say which one is your favorite, which is your second favorite, and so on. And so this is another factor that the lottery system takes into account as it's processing the lottery and assigning students to time slots that are available across all companies. And so this is a simple process in Artworks where you'll literally be looking at your list of companies in Artworks. You'll be hitting the ranking button if you need to on the left-hand side under OCI and job listings, there's a ranking button. And then you will literally be grabbing so you can see the 3 lines next to each logo. That is a handle for you to click and drag the OCI to different positions. And it's trying to make it really clear on the right here where it says ranking 1 through 7. If you were to make 7 applications, you can very clearly see what your order is in priority. Now, your availability. It's important that if you have any obligations during the portfolio review on March 11th, and that portfolio review, the full schedules run from 12 to 5 p.m. If you have any conflicts, such as a class that you can't miss or a work study shift or something of that nature, you want to block out that time that you're not available in Artworks. So if you have the full time available on March 11th, there is nothing to block out. You don't need to worry about this step. It's only if you have something that you need to block. I know I'm being kind of thorough with that point, but it can be confusing and sometimes folks will actually block out time that they're available, but that's not what you want to do. You're blocking out time you are not available. And so to do this, if you have an obligation, pay attention to this part. You'll go to My Interview Availability on the left-hand side in Artworks. You'll scroll over to the week from March 11th, and you can hit that here on the left. You've got a left and right arrow to select the appropriate week. And then you'll click anywhere between 12 and 5 p.m. on that date. And it will give you the chance to put in something that is an obligation. So as you can see, I'm trying to be really clear here. This is class time, no interviews from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And then once I submit that, the lottery will avoid this blue block of time. It will not book interviews during that time. So anywhere from 1:30 to 5 o'clock shows that it's open for the lottery to use. Please do keep in mind, I know that this is a little bit confusing, but there is a My Calendar option here on the left-hand side. That is not for booking your interview availability. Uh, that is a separate view. So when you do have if you are to get a portfolio review that gets booked in the system, that's when you can use the My Calendar option on the left-hand side. Um, it looks just like my interview availability, except it's just showing all of your obligations that are happening on your schedule. And as you can see here, uh, there's a portfolio review that's booked at 2:30. So the system successfully avoided that class time and instead plugged in a portfolio review for this test person in this time frame. All right. So now that that technical side of things is covered for how to get into the system, how to apply for an opportunity, now it's time to talk about the things that are real world preparations. And that is really including like what your perspective and your pitch is for what your career ambitions are for this year. So think about what your goals are for this year. Um, it may be something as simple as an internship for this summer because you're a junior, a rising senior, or you may be coming up on graduation and you may be looking for opportunities professionally after graduation. Think about your passions and your skills, the things that you're most excited about, the things that you want to do professionally, and be ready to talk about that and verbalize that in a concise, easy manner, something that is easy to say and summarized. So, and it's always a good idea to practice this pitch. You'd be surprised. You have something in your head that you feel really solid about, but then when you go to verbalize it, sometimes it can take a life of its own. And it's always good to practice on your peers who will be really honest with you and coach you through it. The other things to be prepared for are having questions ready that you'd like to ask and to be yourself. The best thing that can happen in this experience is that you are authentic, you are showing your work and being transparent. That's the reason why these reviewers line up to participate in this event. They're really keen on RISD talent and meeting new people. And so please try to be confident in these conversations. Know that you're talking to friendly folks that are anticipating a great experience with you. Now, how you'll meet with reviewers, it also happens through the Artworks platform. It is a platform that we've been using for years now, and it's a video client within Artworks. So you're not using like Zoom or Google Meeting or Microsoft Teams or something like that. It all happens within Artworks. And it does work very well for managing the connections between students and between employers and portfolio reviewers. You know, as administrators, we're sure that we have accurate info for the reviewers to get into the meetings with you. And it's all sequenced through the platform. There is one tip that I'd like to share with all of you about screen sharing. So, most people that are in your situation will be sharing their screen to talk through their work. Because Artworks is a platform that runs on web pages, what I do recommend is when you go to share your screen, separate your portfolio into one window and your Artworks meeting in another window. So in this case, I have the portfolio window in green and I have it taking up 2/3 of the window. And then I've got the Artworks window, which is actually kind of going off the screen a bit on the left-hand side. The reason why I suggest doing this is because in order to see the reviewer and their video window. And you can see that little thumbnail on the left-hand side here. This is going to enable you to see the reviewer that you're talking to while you're showing your portfolio on the right-hand side in green. So it's just one of those aspects to try to smooth out this experience for you. What to wear? We have a photo here of folks that are in an in-person event, but as we know, it's equally as important to show up intentionally when you're presenting your work and presenting yourself to a reviewer. So just express yourself the way that you feel is professional and show that you care. Of course, the remote etiquette that we've all grown accustomed to over the years is to make sure that you've got a fast internet connection, that your camera video is working well, and that screen sharing is working properly. Find a quiet place to do your presentation to try to keep distractions to a minimum. And shut off any applications, notifications, or any distractions that you can, just so that you can really focus on your experience. And when you're first showing to a reviewer, you know, there's always that question like, oh, will the reviewer ask me to show certain works, or will I be leading the presentation? A great way to face that right up front is to just simply ask the reviewer how they would like this experience to go, and be prepared to share your screen and control the presentation for them. If you are showing work with audio, please don't forget to like share that computer audio when you go to share your screen. And when you're choosing what to present, knowing that you've got this pre-scheduled with reviewers, think about each reviewer that you'll meet with and their work, and think about the work that you think that they'll respond to best. Questions are always great to have in mind. It's a 15-minute session, so it will go by quickly, but you should have a chance to ask at least one question near the end of your review, possibly two or more. So these are some basic skills that are intentionally open-ended to try to get the reviewer talking and to give you the chance to sit back and listen and absorb. So like the skills that they seek in applicants, or anything now that they've seen your portfolio, anything that they'd recommend that you add, things that you may have missed, if they have any openings, and where you can find them. And always important to try to get contact info if possible, and permission to send them an email after the event. That can be, as I had mentioned at the start of this presentation, such an important way for you to be able to make something out of these connections that you're making, make some lasting impact and influence. So I'd like to debunk a couple of things, if you will. So if we're talking about when you're connecting, trying to meet with some of these companies that are so popular with so few time slots available, like, is it fair to say that the only way to connect with these companies is by getting on their review schedule? Of course, the answer is not. There are excellent ways to network after this event. While the portfolio reviews are a great experience when you get them, the connections can be developed after the event, and these companies are certainly excited about connecting with more than just the 18 students that they met with over portfolio view schedule. They want to hear from more of you. Meeting with a company that may not be my favorite can still provide me with very helpful insights. And that is definitely true. You know, we may not always get our top choice, but everyone that's showing up and being a part of this event has considerate and thoughtful things to say about your work. They can give you feedback, and that's always going to be a value to you. So for following up, and I've mentioned this a bit and like to go into some more detail here just because it is so important. So following up after the event, this could be the Friday after the event, so March 13th, or maybe even better, maybe when the smoke clears and the employer's gotten back into the swing of things the following week, you could send them a thank you note then. And if you have their email available, that would be a great way to reach out. Even if you do have their email available, LinkedIn and possibly Instagram are also other alternatives that can be really important. And of course, like getting these connections is great, but keeping in touch is really what builds a lasting kind of relationship that can go on into the future. And so when we're talking about networking and keeping in touch, we're talking about the reaching out to the employers who participated, and especially if there's any alums that work at places that you're excited about, reach out to them. They will tend to be more welcoming as fellow alums. Share your enthusiasm for their work when you reach out. Don't assume that they think that you're a fan. Like, let them know specifics about what it is that you like about them. The more specific, the better. It shows authenticity and it shows that they can believe what you're saying about their work. And it's also a great way to lead into asking about any internships or opportunities that may be available from the company. We do provide a list of reviewers that will be posted to the participating companies page. So again, that URL is 2026 at the end of the design review URL. And we'll be publishing that on March 12th, the day after portfolio reviews. So you can take advantage of that. Please do also note that in this case, and this is an older list, we do reserve a column that shows if there are emails available in Artworks. And if they're alums, we've got that data in there in columns F and G. And that will be present certainly when you go and check it out for the 2026 list. I also recommend even now you can go back to previous years and see who participated. We do get some um, repeat participants, and you may have a preview to folks that are actually um, getting involved this year. And when we're talking about reaching out on LinkedIn, this gives you a chance to not fill out like a long introductory email, but actually like a very brief LinkedIn invitation. And so even if you were to keep it as simple as this, like thanking them for participating, letting them know that you're interested in their company. If you weren't able to meet with them, it's okay to admit that you didn't get onto their schedule, but you're looking forward to connecting with them on LinkedIn. And then if you get that connection, LinkedIn will notify you and you can take those follow-up steps that we had just covered, like introducing yourself, saying what you're excited about in their work, and inquiring about opportunities. And that can all be direct messaged through LinkedIn. Or if you're able to do this over Instagram, you could direct message through Instagram. So to recap what we've covered, in general terms, we are proposing that you research the participating companies that are going to be taking part in design review this year. Make sure that you've got a resume prepared that you can upload to Artworks because that will be submitted with your applications. The applications open on Tuesday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. And we recommend applying to at least 3 companies during that time. It's a 2-day window, plenty of time, no need to rush. There's no advantage to applying early, trying to keep this stress free for all of you. And as you know, you're applying to be a part of this application lottery, and the lottery results will be published to everyone, employers and students alike, Friday morning, and that's Friday, March 6th. The portfolio reviews are on March 11th. And don't forget to follow up and keep in touch with companies after the event. Probably the best way to really get value from this event. Now we do have some extended periods of support um, for for all of you. So the Friday on March 6th, we're running drop-ins in person from 9 to 3, and as well on Monday, March 9th, 9 to 3. On the big day, so on Wednesday, March 11th, we'll be running virtual Zoom drop-ins from 12 to 5. So if you need some last minute guidance or if you've run into any issues, we will all be on call in that Zoom room ready to help out. And so now Susan and I would like to open it up for questions. Um, Thanks for hanging in here tonight, and let's see if there are any questions that we can help with.
Yeah, I just want to echo Jason's encouragement. We don't have any questions at the moment, but please don't hesitate. A couple of other thoughts come to mind just to add to what Jason's mentioned and done such a great job presenting this evening. With regard to your resume, I just want to remind you to, if you have a portfolio URL that you can include on your resume, that is ideal, because the employers who will be receiving your materials will likely look for that and want to take a quick look at your work if they can ahead of time, or after the fact, either way. So don't forget a portfolio URL if you have it. If you have a LinkedIn, absolutely include that on your resume as well. It's a great way for an employer to get a kind of a fuller picture of who you are. It goes beyond the one page of a resume. And lastly, if you are using Instagram or another form of social media for representing your work, we would encourage you to include a link to that on your resume as well. So, a couple of questions, Jason.
Yeah.
And so first is just a thank you for the presentation. And can we find the Career Center drop-in hours on the Career Center website? So,
Yeah. So it is on the Career Center website. Our website is careercenter.risd.edu/meet-us. That would be the page for meeting with us. I will also just point out we just sent out oh, and actually, I'll just tell you for the benefit of this presentation, Mondays and Wednesdays, our common hours are 9 to 1. Mondays and Fridays. Mondays and Fridays, 9 to 1. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 to 1. And that's at the Career Center in the lobby at 20 Washington Place. Thank you for that question, Brightly.
yeah. Another question, Jason. Say you have a very niche type of design work that you do for children's book design, for example. Should you apply only to companies in your niche area?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, you know, it is a good idea to apply to companies even if they're outside of your specialty or your common niche or art direction. Um, and the reason for this is that you can get fresh perspectives from folks that are across the screen from you who are art directors who have had past experience. They've all been through the rigors of building their professional career, and you can trust that as professionals, they will have insights into your work, even if it isn't necessarily exactly what they produce. You know, these reviewers are participating as a gesture to contribute and to pay it forward to RISD. They want to be helping RISD folks, and they also want to be building a reputation and building connections through the school. So it's something to take advantage of for sure. But thank you for that question. It may even be worth uh, pointing out in the beginning of your portfolio review that hey, you know that your style may be somewhat different from what they normally do, but you're hoping to get, some feedback on what you're doing. Um, just by giving the reviewer some direction, they'll appreciate that, and it shows that you're prepared and that you're alert. It wasn't just like random that you ended up getting a portfolio review with them.
few other great questions here. During a review, do people typically show their work via a portfolio PDF of curated work, or can we just show our website if we can feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, you know, it's really up to your preference. And I say that in terms of like you're showing a portfolio that you're getting out there into the world that's representing you. So it should be what you will be using for real. For architects, just as an example, that will always be a PDF, most likely. So, showing your PDF in that linear progress will be important. If you do like having your portfolio website and you'd like to show that, I think the benefit of a portfolio website is that it is nonlinear, so you can switch over to different work depending on the reviewer that you're meeting with. If you'd like to lead with certain projects that are different depending on who you're meeting with, that gives you that flexibility. But it really is up to you. And also, the way that you want that experience to go when you're sharing a screen. I think that if you are showing different projects and if you would have to jump around between pages and you're using a linear PDF, that may be something that you want to like reconsider or at least get really good at like, how do I jump to different pages, to get to the projects of interest?
Yeah, there are a couple of other questions, but this one is also very related to portfolio, Jason.
Mhm.
So I understand 15 minutes can blink by. Would it be more beneficial to have a shorter and more packed portfolio? For example, one project per page, take advantage of the screen size, a lot of pages per project, or flesh out 1 to 3 projects?
Mm, that's a great question. And, I could see that. Oh, I see. Um, yeah, and I see the follow-up question too. So the first question, you know, um, when you think about it, when you're doing a portfolio review in 15 minutes, this is a pretty accelerated experience. If you were to have, like an interview, for instance, you would have at least like a half hour, potentially more than that, to review your work and really go into it with an employer in consideration for a job. So a portfolio review, it's almost like you're deliberately doing a sub you're doing like a sampling of work. So it's really going to depend on what you feel like you can cover in a graceful way during that 15 minutes. If you were to show too many images, I think one thing that I would be concerned about is that it could have the feeling of like trying to rush through lots of different images. Um, Perhaps it might be more useful and valuable to choose a smaller number of projects where you can show your process that goes along with the final result so that you can get some comments that are deeper in nature on like maybe the things that you're looking for the most feedback on. I think that as a presenter, whether you're a fine artist or a designer or an architect, there may be like a couple of projects that you have that are most critical to you, where you're looking for feedback on the most. And I would try to take advantage of that opportunity. So I suppose the short answer is like 1 to 3 projects and presenting those within 15 minutes, provided you don't have to rush too quickly. And then, do you have anything to add to that though, Susan? It's such
Yeah,
a deep question.
yeah, I was just thinking about it, and one of the, it's a really personal choice, quite honestly. But one question that you could ask the reviewer in that 15-minute window, probably toward the end, would be something like, if I were to apply to you in the future for an opportunity, what would you suggest in terms of the way I present my work? Has this been too much? Or do you really look for something particular? And can you share what it is that you look for? So the beauty of this experience really, or the event, I should say, is that these aren't interviews, and you can really ask very open-ended questions to get that type of advice that you can apply for future applications. So I think, Jason's comments are really sound. I would, really think carefully about the work that you want most comments about, or, want to focus on and get the most amount of feedback on, and maybe present it in whatever way you think it really is showcasing the work. And that will be the focus of the conversation. And then you'll walk away with some information that you didn't have before from the reviewer. And that's really the point of this event too, is to get that insight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so a couple of other questions here. Um, do you have any tips for overcoming nerves just before or during the event?
Hmm.
So kind of like, how do you manage the stress of the situation, and
Hmm.
just feeling prepared to be in front of somebody with your work that you don't know and who is going to be talking with you for the first time?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such a good point, and um, but I think like some of the things that I would try to consider to maybe like put your mind at ease a little bit is that you are likely like very comfortable in critique. You have critique regularly in studio where you're getting, you know, raw feedback about your work, and that can be very challenging. And it does really prepare RISD folks for these kinds of conversations really well. Um, the other thing that I would consider is that if in terms of like, in terms of stress, like I think of like I would be stressed if I felt like I wasn't prepared or I had done something wrong, right? And I'm just trying to think about these moments. And if you prepare by looking at the company's work, being knowledgeable of their work, and knowing how you feel as though your work coincides to theirs, um, it doesn't have to look the same, but just like what elements um, do you have in your work that relate to what they're doing? Or maybe their work is just inspirational to you and your work. But being able to demonstrate that you are familiar with their work is going to warm up the reviewer, to put it in simple terms. Like, this reviewer is going to like speaking with someone that is prepared and that knows their company's work. Um, and I think that the other thing is just being prepared in terms of like making sure that if at all possible, you have maybe just some quiet time before you start your portfolio reviews, where you may be able to like be in a quiet place and just like realize that you're prepared, maybe like double check everything's working on your laptop and your internet connection's working, and then just like be really be really early for your portfolio review if you can, so that you don't feel as though you're just like getting into the review just in a nick of time or something like that. But these things they can cause nerves, but you I do believe that it is something that you do get more and more used to with practice. And that's part of the nature of this event, is that, there are times where we do see students that do have nerves at times, and they'll even come to see us in the drop-ins, and we can talk with you and help to get you back there and be participating in reviews. It's kind of a natural part of the process, and better to get through these things now while you're still a student than to wait until it's showtime at graduation and you're trying to actually get those interviews settled.
I
But
would
I'd
say
also love
too,
your input, Susan.
yeah, yeah, thanks, Jason. I would say too, in addition to knowing the reviewers that you're going to meet and talk with based on the type of work they do and the relationship of your interest to that work, is to just kind of do a dry run a number of times with sharing your portfolio with someone other than yourself. So it's a really good moment to come into the drop-in advising that Jason mentioned earlier, where and literally drop-ins are 15 minutes long. So you could come into a drop-in advising meeting and say, hey, I just want to review my portfolio with someone before I attend the design review next week or whenever, you're coming in. And we would be more than happy to, hear what your process is, what you're going to be saying, and to give some feedback and suggestions if that would be helpful to you. So don't forget about that. We are here before the event to support you as best we can. Um, and then to the points Jason made, I think really the practice makes perfect with these situations. And the more you are accustomed to what it's like and you have a sense of like, oh, okay, this was actually really helpful to me. This was not, the thing that I feared, whatever that might be. Or if something, went differently than you expected and you navigated that, it is also just a really good reminder that you can, be resilient in the moment and keep going. So those are the other kind of related thoughts I had to your question. Other questions here, Jason. What are the companies expecting from students going into the event? And are they here to give feedback and scout for internships, to get to know our work? Why are the companies attending?
Yeah. So, you know, this is something that we are very careful in our communications. The Career Center is very careful in our communications with employers about the nature of this event. We are telling them that the nature of this event is for them to bring their expertise as creatives and to give feedback to what they're seeing in your presentation. And that includes like what they're seeing in your process, your creative process, your work, your presentation, if the way that you're presenting it or the the way that your portfolio is formatted, if they have feedback about that, it's really meant to be giving you the feedback that you never get, honestly, from an interview process. When you get an interview, you go in, you present your work, and people will nod and they'll see what you're doing and they'll be evaluating it, but they normally don't give you feedback on how to improve. So this is an excellent chance to get that feedback. Um, but I will admit that some employers do come in with a somewhat different agenda. And, as a student, we do recommend that you try to get that agenda clear right from the start. And that can include like how you want to present your work and what you'd like to cover, or asking them what their interests are. Some employers do ask questions that may be similar to what you'd hear in an interview, like what you're looking for, or what you're excited about. Um, and in turn, you're also given some leeway to ask questions of them about like what they look for in candidates and if they're hiring. So it should be mostly a portfolio review with feedback, but there may be some evidence of like kind of like an informational interview kind of interaction that happens during your portfolio review. And a lot of students really appreciate that. They appreciate knowing that there's some interest from the employer, and following up is also a great way to continue this conversation so that it isn't just limited to 15 minutes. You can have uh, communications that last after the event.
One of the things Jason's comments reminding me to say is that at the conclusion of your meeting with an employer, it would be very appropriate to say something like, it's been really wonderful meeting with you. I appreciate the insights you shared about my work. I'm wondering if you can let me know when you do have open positions, where you post them, and if you think that might be happening, in the coming months or weeks. So again, it's not an interview, so you can ask that question to determine if they are going to be hiring or not. And I think in general, we well, in general, we always encourage employers who are attending the design review to post their opportunities and artworks. And I think that I've begun to see that happening. So do keep an eye on artworks for the positions that may be posted over the next couple of weeks, especially. But please don't feel that it's inappropriate to ask that question of when they post, where do they post, and when might that be?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's see. I think this is the last question. My favorite firm's application portal closes before the portfolio review date. Do you think I should apply now or try to arrange an in-person portfolio review in March instead?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I would not wait on the application. I would definitely apply and take advantage of this window of opportunity. I mean, just think you could make that application and then after portfolio review, you could follow up with this reviewer and let them know that you applied. And that adds more, even more evidence of your interest in them. And if you get to meet with them in the portfolio review event, great, you can mention this in your portfolio review. Or if you don't get to meet with them following up, perhaps they'll make time for a follow-up arrangement. You never know. I mean, we don't want to set anyone's expectations too high, but we are always encouraged to see how some employers will really they'll honor that engagement after the event. They will make time for students. They will make introductions. They will make those connections on LinkedIn. It is real. If, like I said before, if these companies registered for portfolio review only to meet with 18 students maximum, and they've got so many other students interested in them, that wouldn't be a very good use of their time. They deliberately want to get involved in this event, including all of the networking that happens post event. So definitely apply to that opportunity, I would say.
Yeah, I agree completely. The other thing that I've talked with students about in the past through just a general advising meeting is things that you could even do proactively before the design review or in applying for open positions. It may not be possible to find the person who's actually going to review your application for the opening that you have in mind, but you could do a couple of things to see if there are people out there who work for that company that might be involved in some part of the hiring process.
Yeah.
So, what I mean by this is, Jason mentioned the participating reviewers from the past that you can find on the design review website. I'd look at who attended in the design review in 2025, and if the company and attendees there are noted, then you have names that you could be using to follow up with, maybe not by email, but on LinkedIn. So, doing some outreach to the person or people you think might be involved in the hiring process for the company now, to say, I'm really excited about the opportunity that you've posted. I just applied before the deadline, and I hope I have the chance to meet with you at the RISD Design Portfolio Review on March 11th. Is already, a very proactive move on your part to engage with that company. And hopefully you'll have the chance to do that at the design review. Regardless of whether you have that opportunity or not, this is just good practice, again, to make connections with people outside of RISD for opportunities that you're seeking. So I hope that is helpful. That's kind of a long answer to the question, or an addition to Jason's answer. But the whole point here is that we want students who participate in the design review to be able to have this foundation to begin to build their network. And that's happening through the individual meetings that you might have, but also, like, to bring this full circle to one of the points Jason made at the beginning of the presentation this evening. It is also a way for you to get to know the types of companies that are often interested in RISD applicants, hopefully the people that have attended that you can connect with after the fact, as we've been saying, and begin to build those connections that will help you in the long run with your professional goals and aspirations, whether that's an internship in the coming summer or a full-time role if you're graduating. So I hope that's useful as kind of a final point. Um, and I think
And
we have come to the end of the questions.
actually, it is the second question from Brightly.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
so Brightly's asking,
Yes,
can we
got you.
upload different portfolios to different interviewers? So, um, as Susan had pointed out, getting your portfolio URL on your resume is key in this process. So if you have different portfolio URLs that you want to share for different applications, then you want to make different versions of your resume that feature that unique link. Um, there is an option for a portfolio sample that can be uploaded as well. Um, this is not mandatory, it's optional. But if you have different portfolio samples, then of course, likewise, you could submit different portfolio samples for the applications that you want to. So each time you make an application, it sends off a copy of that resume PDF, and if you submit a portfolio sample, that PDF of the sample, and that is persistent just for that application. So even if you changed your resume and your sample in your profile, it does not change anything in that application that you've already made. So keep that clear. Yeah. Well, we made it to 8 o'clock and we respect everybody's time. Thank you for making time for us and learning about the design review. Definitely take advantage of coming to see the Career Center during drop-in hours. And those hours again are Monday and Friday, 9 to 1, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 to 1. But thanks for being a part of it. And thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. Just a quick reminder that because RISD will not reopen on
Mhm.
campus until Thursday, we will not be at the Career Center until Thursday for drop-ins. And then hopefully we're finding places to park and able to get to work. But of course we want to support you as I said earlier. We will be in the office on Thursday, all things going according to plan.
Yeah. And stay safe, everybody.
Yeah.
All
Have a
right.
nice night.